became a professional mission and lit the path to my life's work in the field of health literacy. Now, I understand health literacy is a term not people hear every day, and it's often misunderstood. So to put simply, health literacy has two sides. First, it's personal, which is about how well you are able to access or find, understand, and use health information. Then there's organizational health literacy, which is about how well health professionals and organizations support you in doing that. Over the last decade, I've dedicated my work to improving organizational health literacy. I've trained thousands of health professionals in numerous organizations on how to make it easier for patients by applying evidence-based health literacy strategies like plain language communication and teach back, which is an approach involving asking patients to explain back in their own words what they've understood to confirm understanding. I also began working on the whole system side, helping to push for policy change by building state and national health literacy organizations. But I have to tell you, some days it's felt like trying to carve a river one spoonful at a time. So today I'm switching gears. Today I'm here for you to share how you can be the change in your next healthcare visit. Because the issue is more important now than ever. Because right now, AI is becoming more and more visible in the healthcare space. And if you're going to trust it, you're going to need to be able to ask if, when, where, and how it may be used in your care. AI at its core refers to computer systems designed to perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence. But it's not some far-off concept. We all use it every day. When Netflix recommends your next show, when your GPS reroutes you around traffic, or your phone auto-completes a text, that's AI at work. And if designed well, AI has the potential to improve healthcare communication. A tool called Ambient Listening AI can record your visit, take notes, and free your doctor to look you in the eye instead of down at a computer screen. It can also translate complex medical language into plain terms so you don't leave wondering what disopyramide BID even means. It can also answer your basic questions through chatbots, which can be especially helpful if you live in an area with limited resources or access to care. Now at this point, some of you may be wondering, does this mean my doctor is being replaced by a robot? And the answer is no. AI is not replacing your doctor. Your doctor is still responsible for reviewing any transcribed notes and for making all final decisions. AI is an assistant, not a decision maker. But here's the catch. Like any other tool, AI is only as good as its human design and the human conversation around it. It can support your care, it can assist in your visit, but obviously it cannot speak on your behalf. That voice still needs to come from you. Now I understand and I get it, in a rushed appointment this may feel daunting. But if you've ever felt cut off during a visit, you're not imagining it. In 2018, Dr. Singh, Ospina, and colleagues found that doctors typically interrupted their patients after just 11 seconds. Now, obviously, that's not enough time to feel heard or understood. And that happens, and you hold the power. But I do want to be clear, most doctors and other health professionals truly do care about their patients and wish they had more time to listen and to explain. But the system just doesn't always make that easy. So we need to come in with the mindset that we are partners in our care. So the heart of my idea is this. The best way that you can help rewrite the narrative of confusion in healthcare is to find and use your voice. That's why I created a simple framework to help you show up, speak up, and stay in the driver's seat, even in the age of AI. It's called 5 Steps to Better Health Literacy. First is speak up. Let's not be like Linda. If you don't understand a concept, an instruction, or a medical term, say so. And if you feel hesitant, here's something to hold on to. Your doctor's job is to take care of you, and you have the right to understand what's going on with your health. Next is to take notes and bring someone with you, because remember, many of us forget up to 80% of the information that we're given. So then it's important to explain what you heard. This means using a technique I call check back to make sure that you've understood. You might want to say something like, just to make sure I'm clear, you told me I'm supposed to start taking this medicine on Wednesday? Right. Then P is prepare questions. Write them down ahead of time, as well as any concerns you might have. We've all left an appointment thinking, oh, I forgot to ask. Then finally, seek clarification. Be sure to ask about your next steps, including any follow-up visits, lab tests, and also how to reach your doctor in case you have any further questions. When you do these things, you are stepping into your power and making sure that your voice is being heard in every exam room every time. Yes, the healthcare system is complex, and yes, AI adds another layer to that. But you, the patient, the caregiver, the loved one, you have more power than you think. You are the expert in your own life, and your voice, it just might be the most powerful tool in the room. So let's stop treating confusion as just part of the healthcare experience. Let's start being the change by speaking up and taking control of our care. Now, my hope today isn't just that you've learned something or you might feel a little inspired. It's that you act, that you walk into your next appointment as a partner in your care. Because when you change the conversation, you don't just change your own experience, you change healthcare, one voice at a time. Well, all 3 of my siblings are gone now, but the fire they lit in me, it still burns. And I hope, just maybe, I've lit a little fire in you too. I'm Karen, no longer a jargon junkie, and I thank you. Thank you.
Ridgefield, Connecticut. Joining us from Ridgefield, Connecticut, Lorena Seidel is a parent educator who helps communities raise emotionally resilient children. Her work has been featured in New York Metro Parents, Motherly, Welcome Parenthood, and the book 10 to 25, The Science of Motivating Young People. Please join me in welcoming Lorena to the stage.
When my daughters were very little, they started asking for a pet. And in a moment of optimism, or maybe insanity, we got a bunny. We named him Coconut, and everyone was happy, except Coconut. Until I walked into the room and saw one of my daughters holding Coconut by the back legs and shaking him up and down. I froze. Then I exploded. In seconds, I did all the wrong things. I started with the shaming. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Then came the threats. Do we need to give this bunny to another family with nicer little girls? Then came the punishment. Just go to your room. I can't even look at you right now. And then I felt awful. I deeply wanted to be a calm, intentional parent. I was reading all the books, taking the parenting classes, meditating. I was a Montessori teacher with a master's in education and a thesis in emotional intelligence. I should know better. I had all the certifications and none of the skills. I paused and I asked myself, what is she learning right now? Am I teaching her responsibility, empathy? No. What am I modeling right now? Am I being respectful, a good communicator, emotionally regulated? No. I realized I was fostering a dynamic where she messes up and I freak out and she gets the message, Mom loses her temper every time I make a mistake. And that thought crushed me. As a parent, you know the heart-sinking feeling, I'm doing damage here. But for the first time ever, I didn't leave it at that. I realized she's only 4. She's only ever had stuffed animals up to this point. Of course she didn't know how to handle a real bunny. And then I remember that I had mishandled some kittens when I was her age. So I called her back. I got down to her level and I said, you know what? When I was little, I did the same thing. Her whole face lit up. Then I asked, what can we do to take good care of Coconut? She thought for a second and said, I can take Coconut out. I can help you clean the cage. I can feed Coconut. Great. I wrote these things down and then I apologized for the way I spoke to her. In that moment, I realized she wasn't just learning how to take care of a pet. She was learning how to own a mistake, solve a problem, and recover after a conflict. And I was finally able to model the values I wanted her to embody. That one do-over changed everything for me. I realized I didn't need more parenting information. I just needed a new mindset and a new way to practice what I already knew. The problem is not that we face hard parenting moments. The problem is that we waste them. For the past 20 years, I've worked in the intersection of education and emotional intelligence, helping thousands of parents. And here's what I know. Most parenting advice misses the point. Have you ever wondered why all those great strategies you find in the books, they all go out the window when you need it most? In the heat of the moment, we can't even access them. And have you noticed that all the tips, tools, tricks, situation by situation scripts, they all make us feel like we are playing a game of chess with someone whispering us all the moves, but we never get to master the game on our own. And even when we manage to use some good strategies, it often doesn't work because we throw them at a massive wall of disconnection. When our children are shut down or rebelling, it is impossible to get through them. And in moments of conflict, our family's emotional intelligence is on the floor. We quickly become the angry disciplinarians or the doormats, and our children become the bad kid, and we're instant opponents, making it impossible for us to get to the root of the problem. Another problem is that we focus on managing behavior. How to stop a tantrum, how to get them to do homework. These short-term goals matter. But what we really want is to raise good humans who are kind, confident, emotionally stable. And our misconception is that we think our children will develop these crucial skills eventually, on their own. But how many adults do we know who are not kind, not confident, not stable? Millions. Because these skills don't come with time, they come with practice. We treat challenging moments as something to fix right now, instead of an opportunity for growth. Trying to teach a child teach a child in the middle of a meltdown is like trying to teach a drowning person how to swim. It's simply not the time. When two children are playing and fighting over a toy, we take away the toy. But because we didn't teach them anything, the same conflict is going to happen again tomorrow. We would never do that to academics. We get it, that if our child is struggling with reading, it would be useless to take away the book and say, go to your room. What do? We slow down. We review the basics. We give them another shot. We apply time, patience, and daily practice to it. But when it comes to behavior or outbursts, we do the opposite. We shut down and miss the chance to practice. And when we make mistakes as parents, and we yell or we give in, we rarely give ourselves a second chance either. This is where the parenting do-over come in. Because we don't need more parenting scripts or hacks. We need more parenting practice. So how do we go from breakdowns to breakthroughs? The do-over is the deliberate pause to flip the negative thought that creates the breakdowns in the first place. I like to say that the problem is not the problem, is what we think about the problem that is the problem. Let's go back to coconut. My child's mistake was not the real problem. The problem was my thinking. What is wrong with her? This is so mean. Those thoughts made me feel triggered and frustrated, and led me to believe that she needed to be shamed, and drove my decision to punish her. And what was the result? We disconnected, she learned absolutely nothing, and I felt guilty. In that do-over, I simply shifted my thinking. She just needs more coaching. She's only 4. And that new thinking made me feel calmer, made me believe that I could do it again. It drove my decision to do over. My new actions were easy. And what was the result? We reconnected. She learned valuable skills, and coconut was saved. And when our children misbehave, this same predictable cycle is happening. Behind their behavior are their thoughts, feelings, beliefs, decisions that drives their action. Their action is simply the final step. That's why it's so hard to stop it, because there's so much momentum behind it. And when we only focus on the behavior, we spend time putting out fires all the time instead of catching the arsonist. The do-over is what takes us from reaction to intentional parenting, from the behavior manager role to a mentoring role. And every time that we use this, we're not just fixing or solving one single problem. We are intentionally rewiring our brain's default response. And when we do this enough, something incredible happens. Our children start to guess what we're going to say. And we give them their own social-emotional coach in their heads. What drives me deeply in my core is a childhood memory of me being in our kitchen floor, being asked to kneel down and kiss my mother's feet to apologize for a mistake. My mother was overwhelmed, doing the best she could, but in that moment, I felt humiliated and hurt. And I made the promise to myself that when I am a grown-up and I'm a parent, I'll do things differently. And that's why it was so heartbreaking to hear echoes of that same anger in my own voice. But you see, my angry mother was raised by an abusive father, who was raised by a neglectful mother. This wasn't just my story. This was a toxic generational pattern that I was inheriting. And I now understand my mom. And now I know how hard it is to keep showing up. But the profound truth is, good intentions don't rewrite old patterns. We need to develop new skills and practice a new framework, because it's not what we know, but it's what we do that makes the difference. And this is what started my journey, not just to understand parenting, but to transform it. For myself, for my children, and for every parent who wants to do better, but don't know how. Many think that a harmonious family is one without conflict. That's a misconception. A harmonious family is one where conflict is the starting point for connection, where everyone can make mistakes, have big feelings, and disagree, knowing that we have the framework to skillfully recover and grow. So my challenge to you is simple. The next time that you lose your temper, give yourself the time out, not your kid. Go change your state of mind, and then practice the do-over. Because everyday parenting failures, they're not just forgivable, but they are the gateway to raising amazing, emotionally intelligent children, and finally becoming the parent we always wanted to be. The generational cycle ends with you. It's time we start to parent on purpose, and we move from reaction to intention. Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple minutes. We don't have an intermission for our program, but we'd like to take a little pause, and I always think of it as a stretch pause. Because we had a couple speakers, and for some of you, maybe you were there in 2018 when we had, oh my gosh, I just forgot her name. I know her name is Lauren. And the next year we had Matt. So I remember his name, but I'm not going to say it, just be fair to Lauren. And they talked about healthy habits that we can have and how to introduce ourselves to other people. So every year since then, I tried to incorporate a little bit of what they said into our talk. So that's what we're going to do right now. You don't have to, but I can see you. We're going to do a little bit of Lauren. We get to stand up and sort of stretch in place. Thank you, Kimmy. And this is her idea is that you can do these things at work. So Kimmy, she had no idea she's going to do this, but she's doing it exactly right. We just do a little stretch, feel a little bit, get the blood moving. Feeling good? And then, now that we're all stretched, we're feeling good, then we're going to do what Matt does and just try to say hello to someone. I'm sure you're sitting next to someone you haven't met before, and now is a good time to say hello. I'll give you 30 seconds to say hello. Okay, we have made new friends. Now the person that you just said hello to, I am sure, you can sit down. I am sure once we complete our program tonight, we'll have some desserts for you out front. This would be a great person to go talk to and talk about what you liked about the speakers you heard tonight and their ideas. And so that's what we're gonna do now, is get right back to it. We have 3 more speakers tonight. And it's my privilege to welcome our next speaker, Dr. Judy Wright.
What if the reason we struggle to take better care of the spaces and planet entrusted to us is because we never learned how to properly and consistently take good care of ourselves? We tend to define sustainable living by what we can build and harvest: smarter cities, stronger systems, renewable resources. But rarely do we ask, what sustains the people doing the building and maintaining for life and living to be sustainable? In 2020, my family and I started a garden. It was about a month into lockdown, and my then 5-year-old had just completed virtual school for that day. "Mommy, today is Earth Day. Can we start a garden?" I clearly was not ready for that question, and it showed. See, I was home recovering from multiple back-to-back surgeries related to a cancer diagnosis, so I wasn't sure if I could physically get involved with starting a garden. But while recovering, I did notice something. Overall, I felt better than I had in years. It wasn't the surgeries that made me feel better, though. It was the space. For the first time in a long time, I had the space and quiet to take stock. And I realized I had been burning out. And this wasn't the first time. But this time, I couldn't just move on. I had to sit in that truth and ask one question: what am I doing here again? So I took the time and did some uncomfortable self-exploration. And slowly, it became clear. I had never put any system in place to protect myself from burnout. One glaring clue: a few years earlier, I had purchased one of those massage memberships. You know the one. It's where you buy a service every month, whether you use it or not. And if anyone asked me what self-care looked like to me, I would say quickly and confidently, I love a good massage. It's my thing. Yet, when the lockdown went into effect, I found out I had 27 unused massage credits. That's 27 months, over 2 years that I ignored the very thing I described as my thing, my form of self-care, the way I prioritize myself. It was both jarring and eye-opening. Right then and there, I knew I had to rebuild intentionally. So I started taking daily walks, doing grounding work, reestablishing boundaries, and redefining self-care. I had to figure out what self-care meant to me and needed to do for me. That would take trial and error. I didn't have it all figured out, but I knew that for the first time, I was going to build something sustainable. So, back to that garden question. Physically, I knew I couldn't do it on my own. But mentally and emotionally, I had more space, clarity, energy, and peace than I had in quite some time. I looked at my 5-year-old and I said, well, let's see what we can do. So at my request, my husband went into that jungle we call a garage, and he fished out a greenhouse kit I had purchased 3 years earlier. You know, one of those someday projects. And we got to building the greenhouse. And then we planted seeds and seedlings. And over time, we began to grow broccoli and kale, green onions and herbs, lettuce and spinach, peppers and tomatoes, even carrots and potatoes, to name a few. Our little garden came through for us in more ways than one. Self-care is often reduced to aesthetics and luxury. In healthcare, aesthetics is characterized as cosmetic, non-essential, not life-saving, not vital. It's no wonder that self-care, too, is often seen as non-essential, not life-saving, not vital. But what we're missing is that self-care can serve as the infrastructure that makes long-term sustainability possible. There are different models of sustainability, and they focus on different pillars. The UN's model, for example, focuses on the 5 Ps: people, planet, prosperity, partnerships, and peace. Another model focuses on environment, economics, social, cultural, and people. Still, another model doesn't mention people at all. But no matter the model, self-care is never named directly. And then you dig a little deeper, and you realize, yeah, they don't talk about it at all. It is not surprising that no matter the space I've worked in, from the clinical rooms to the classrooms to the corporate rooms, I see the same problem emerge. We keep trying to build sustainability while burning out the people who are supposed to uphold it. And the ripple effects are huge. Consider a high-level lead environmental engineer who burns out mid-project. That's not just one person that needs recovery. It affects jobs, families, communities, and the population at large. That engineer takes with them years of specialized training and knowledge. And replacing them can cost twice their salary or more. Then you notice the real cost are missed deadlines, failed projects, communities who are waiting for solutions indefinitely, and stalled climate action. Billions invested in sustainability projects are on the line. Suddenly, self-care is not just personal anymore. It's a public issue. Because we can't expect to build true sustainable systems with unsustainable human practices. The truth is, self-care is left out of the conversation because quiet is kept. We're still internalizing it as selfish, privileged, unnecessary. But in a world that pushes us to do more, move faster, and be constantly productive, self-care is the internal infrastructure that allows us to stay clear, present, grounded in purpose, and at peace. Self-care is resilience in motion. It's strategy. It's both the gas and the driver pushing the gas pedal. When we ignore self-care, we are at higher risk for overwhelm, burnout, and going through a series of short-term solutions that can't hold up. In its wake are fractured communities, miscommunication, and unstable systems. When we treat ourselves like machines, we are setting ourselves up to glitch and break. And then we design projects, programs, and policies that simply mirror our instability. But when we treat people like ecosystems, we create resilient structures, structures that can weather the storm and sustain long-term growth. So, what does that look like? Well, it looks like practicing self-care regularly. That could take hours, or it could take minutes. Deep breathing, journaling, going for walks, taking a quiet lunch, doing a tech detox, or going for that massage. All of those are forms of self-care. Sounds so simple, right? So what's the problem? We ignore regular self-care because we haven't taken the time to sit down and figure out how it fits into our everyday life in a way that makes sense. The best way to do that is intentionally, in the form of developing a great self-care routine. Through trial and error, I found that the best self-care routines sit on 4 building blocks. They have to be individualized. That means it needs to be specific to you. It needs to involve activities that restore and recharge you, not something you heard on social media or on your favorite podcast. It needs to be prioritized, taking its rightful place throughout your schedule and not relegated to happen when there's time. It needs to be normalized, done so frequently that even the people around you come to expect it, respect it, and be motivated by it. And it needs to be optimized. If something's not working, we don't just abandon the self-care routine. We adjust it, we adapt it to our needs. When I used those 4 building blocks, I was able to build a great self-care routine that not only fit into my life, but actually made it better. It didn't have to take hours. It just needed to be consistent and intentional, because that's what made the difference. So that's what happened with our little victory garden. It became part of my self-care, tailored in a way that I could work it and grow with it. Every day, sometimes twice a day, I went outside in the sunshine and I was doused in vitamin D, the sounds of nature, and the occasional car horn. Watering, pruning, harvesting, sitting, breathing, pausing. Tending to that garden nourished me physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually at a time when all of that was needed. And it gave us food. Food for my family, my friends, and my community. What started out as the simple request of a 5-year-old became a personal act of care, and then something much more for me and my community. It reminded me that when we tend to ourselves with consistency and care, we make room for the things that matter, for service, for generosity, and for sustainability. Self-care is deeply personal, as it should be. But the absence of self-care doesn't just impact the individual. It affects systems, shapes communities, and alters the future we're trying to build. It is time we stop treating self-care as solely a personal issue that happens when there's time, and start treating it also as a public responsibility. We all should be collectively practicing regular and real self-care. This is not about luxury. It's about longevity. Because if we are serious about building systems that last, we also must be serious about the well-being of the people building, maintaining, and upholding it. So let's stop leaving self-care out of the sustainable living conversation, because it's not just the missing piece. Self-care is the key that unlocks true sustainability. Thank you.
Good evening again. It is my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Anna Thomas from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Dr. Thomas is a palliative care physician, author, speaker, leadership coach, and the founder of Life Care Lead Hership, which supports working caregivers. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Anna Thomas.
If you had been with me in the car on August 4th, 2020, when I was headed back to the hospital for a meeting with my boss in that torrential storm with the fierce winds and the sideways rain, you would have seen me grip the steering wheel with both hands just to keep the car in the lane. Thankfully, as I pulled into the lot, the storm began to ease up. I parked, I grabbed my umbrella, I got ready to rush inside. But now I could hear the sound of sirens. It's a hospital, sirens are common, but this felt different. I looked up just in time to see a wave of fire trucks coming down the road, going past the ER entrance and turning right. But that's where the daycare is. In that moment, I forgot about everything. I just followed those trucks, and when I arrived, I saw trees snapped, cars overturned, and the roof had been ripped off the building. A tornado, hidden in the storm, had torn through my daughter's daycare. I tried to rush inside, but an officer stopped me. He said, "Stop, ma'am, you can't go in. Please, my daughter's in there. She's just 3 years old." He pointed to a nearby building. They're evacuating who they can over there, and I ran. In that building, in that hallway, it was chaos. And I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, panic beginning to swell. I couldn't think, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move. But everything inside me was screaming to act, to do something, but I couldn't. In that moment, a memory surfaced, a lesson I had learned years ago in medical school, something I used and I applied every day as a physician, but never before in my own life until now. When you're facing an emergency situation, before you rush in and you try to do anything, the very first thing you must do is check your own pulse first. Take a deep breath, and then, and only then, do you make your move. So in that busy hallway, I did exactly that. I closed my eyes, I put 2 fingers over my wrist, I felt that pulse, I took a deep breath. One more. And then I began to move. I began searching systematically, room by room, asking teachers and staff for help. I turned a corner, and there she was. She was soaked, wrapped in a towel. I scooped her up. She was trembling, but she was okay. And so was I. And do you think that big breath I took did anything for the storm around me? Not a thing. But it did everything for the storm inside me. You see, when the winds are howling around you and panic begins to rise, remember, we can't even begin to face a storm on the outside until we've conquered the storm on the inside. And we can't lead ourselves or anyone else until we do. We all face storms. Maybe not a tornado. Maybe it's illness or grief or burnout. Maybe it's a phone call where you learn your loved one is sick. Or a mandatory meeting on a Tuesday afternoon where you learn that your whole department has been laid off. Sometimes we face storms together. 2008 financial collapse, COVID, the exhaustion and the fear and the uncertainty that we are all still carrying today. Storms are inevitable. We can't always stop them. We can't always even see them coming. But what we can do is choose how we lead ourselves through them. So how do we do that? Not by carrying it all, not by doing more, but by choosing a different way forward. That breath I took earlier, that pause, it's the first step in what I now call storm leadership. Storm leadership consists of 3 steps: pause, prioritize, and persevere. And when I think back on that August day, I saw it in action. You see, there were 135 children in that building that day. More than 30 teachers, children from newborn age to 5 years old. And every single one of them survived. How? See, the daycare teachers that day did more than just protect lives. They paused, they prioritized, and they persevered. They were storm leaders in action. So let's talk a little bit about storm leadership, starting with that first step, the pause. During times of crisis and overwhelm, maybe it's a phone call that changes everything, or the pressure of 10 competing demands. Our instinct may be to move fast, to fix it, to handle it, to power through. But here's what I want you to consider. To lead yourself well through the storm, you must pause first. And I know that doesn't sound easy, because maybe like me, you were taught that strength looks like speed, that the fastest way to power through is the best way. But pausing isn't weakness, it is wisdom. And this isn't just a motivational idea, it's based on neuroscience. As a physician, I often teach about the brain and dementia. But today, let's learn about the brain in times of crisis. The very front part of your brain, right here, behind the skin and skull and forehead, is known as your prefrontal cortex. It's the executive command center, the leadership part of your brain. It's a part of your brain that helps you make decisions, weigh options, navigate during times of uncertainty, but during times of high stress, crises, your brain is not on your side. When your body floods with cortisol, your primary stress hormone, that leadership part of your brain that you need the most goes offline. And instead, a more primitive part, the amygdala, takes over. The amygdala is like a fire alarm. It is fast, it is loud, it's impossible to ignore. But it can only tell you one of 3 things: fight, flight, or freeze. Which is why in that busy hallway I froze. My fire alarm was blaring, my command center had gone offline. And when we're facing constant deadlines, constant stress, constant uncertainty, the fire alarm keeps blaring. The amygdala keeps firing, and our leadership brain spends more and more time offline. But here's the good news. There's a reset button, and it lives in the pause. When you check your pulse, you're not just feeling your heartbeat. You're forcing yourself to stop, to hold still, to shift from the chaos on the outside and find that steady beat on the inside. And when you pair it with a deep breath, your racing mind slows, your body steadies, and you create the space that you need to choose instead of just react. Research shows that even a 10-second pause is enough to begin to lower that cortisol level, quiet that amygdala, bring your leadership brain back online. The pause is the difference maker. When the tornado warning came to that daycare and the children began to cry out in fear, the teachers paused just for a few seconds, long enough to take a breath and remember what they needed to do next. And in that busy hallway, I paused too. I checked my pulse, I took a deep breath. See, that's the power of a pause. It doesn't erase the storm, but it helps you steady yourself inside of it, so now you get to decide what your next step will be. Because after the pause comes the plan. Storms demand triage. We can't do everything. We're not supposed to. But when you have overwhelming options, everything feels urgent. Research by Roy Baumeister and Catherine Vos tells us this. Decision fatigue, it is real. And even the most capable leaders, when they have overwhelming options, unless they have a way to differentiate what is most important from what isn't, even they will burn out. To lead yourself well to the storm, you must prioritize what matters most. When the tornado came to the daycare, the teachers couldn't do everything, so they focused. And their number one priority, get every child to safety. Can you imagine the presence of mind that it takes to usher 20 toddlers into a closet while the roof is being torn off? That is leadership in action. And you can do it too. In times of crisis and overwhelm, you can name and rank your priorities out loud. That simple act, naming them out loud, can reduce your decision fatigue, improve your focus, allow you to focus your energy with intention so you can begin to move forward, even through the storm. And we see this in action everywhere. In hospitals, triaging care during an emergency, families recalibrating after a diagnosis, communities rebuilding after a disaster. First you pause so your mind can settle, then you prioritize so you can focus your energy on what matters most. The storms don't end with just a list of priorities. You must still move forward. That's where persevere comes in. To lead yourself well through the storm, you must persevere with others. With others. Too often we believe that during times of hardship, it's just easiest to go alone. Put our heads down, we power through, we pretend we're fine. But perseverance at its best doesn't mean going alone. Perseverance at its best begins with an inner choice to reach for others. Because isolation doesn't make us stronger. Isolation makes us vulnerable. Physically, psychologically vulnerable. When the tornado came to the daycare, the teachers moved together, picking up babies, guiding toddlers. They persevered together, not in isolation, interdependence. Let me paint another picture for you. In a storm with fierce winds, a single tree standing alone is the most likely to snap and fall. But a forest with roots intertwined, branches forming a canopy, pressure dispersed. The trees that stand together stand stronger for longer. And the strongest amongst us are those that link arms, root deep, and stand tall together. So let me say this clearly. The way you lead yourself through the storm determines how you survive it. When emotions start to surge, pause. Check that pulse, take a deep breath, let that leadership brain reemerge. When everything feels urgent, prioritize. Ask yourself, what matters most right now? And when you feel like giving up, persevere with others. Reach out for support. That's storm leadership. It's not about the tornadoes on the outside or controlling the weather, but about leading yourself well on the inside. It's now been 5 years since that day. 5 years. The daycare has since been rebuilt from the ground up. The walls are new, the roof is new, but if you were to walk with me through the entrance of that building, you would see a pillar lined with bricks taken from the old building. Now, they didn't keep those bricks to remember the fear or the destruction from that day. They kept it to honor the courage and the resilience that started first on the inside. The courage that made rebuilding the outside even possible. Whatever your storm looks like, when it rises, remember to practice storm leadership, to pause, prioritize, and persevere with others, because the fiercest storms were never on the outside. And when you learn to lead yourself well on the inner ones first, you won't just survive, you'll rise above it.
Joining us from Boston, Massachusetts, Dr. Deshawn Washington is the 2024 Massachusetts Teacher of the Year, a national education advocate, and the founder of Cultivating Changemakers. In his work, he champions student equity and empowerment through policy, storytelling, and purposeful disruption. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Washington to the stage.
In my fourth grade classroom, there is a fire, like a flickering lighter, in every student's heart that beats a rhythm of advocacy, who dares to dream of something bigger, something better with their learning experience. Like when my fourth graders wrote opinion articles, advocating for 30 minutes of recess time every day to the principal, and then met with the principal in the classroom, explaining that 30 minutes of recess time will actually mean that we get to focus longer and engage in deeper learning. This type of advocacy is one that dances with purpose, one that seeks righteous healing, and one that refuses silence. I like to call it igniting the fire of joyful trouble. It's a defined disruption that leverages joy while also advocating for justice. Now take a moment and think about a time in which you may have felt unseen or unrecognized in your work, school, or even life experience. Now imagine being 10 years old, walking into school every day, but never hearing your name being mentioned, your culture being referenced, or even your story being told, and the lessons that help shape who you are and who you're going to become while you're in school. This is the type of advocacy and type of impact that we need to engage in order for our students to be able to see themselves as reflections inside their building. I want to tell you about one particular story that impacts the work that I do. It's one of my former fourth grade students. Her name is Elle, and she a fantastic student from Chile, South America, a great writer, a fantastic mathematician, an excellent reader, and even a better human being. I remember it was the start of Hispanic Heritage Month, a month that we celebrate contributions and the cultures and heritage of Hispanic people in the United States. Elle was beaming with a lot of excitement, y'all, as she was ready to share all about her impact that she was making and sharing about Chilean culture, the music, and even the dance inside of her music class. Unfortunately, whenever she went to music class during that month, all she was learning about was salsa dancing, Mexican instruments, and Mexican heroes of the past and present. And this impacted Elle, because even though she was getting some good learning, she was not learning about her own culture, her own people, nor was she learning about the people around her in Central and South America as well. And as a result, came a silence, came a level of invisibility that impacted her in the hallways, in the cafeteria when talking with friends, or even in the homeroom classroom with me, teaching and learning. When Hispanic Heritage Month came to an end, there was an absence of a child's presence that was prevalent and profound throughout the hallways and the walls of the school, a devastation to a teacher and ambassador of public education. Then came the next day. I was getting ready to get started with yet another school day, setting up the classroom, writing on the board, a good morning message, and all the good things. Where before all the students came in, I noticed in the corner of my eye, I turned to my right, and there she was Elle, putting her belongings away in the locker, but with a purpose, an intent look in her eyes, and a fire within her body. She turned to her right towards the door and pulled open the door. And when she pulled open the door, she looked right me dead in the eye and said, "Good morning, Dr. Washington. We need to talk. Take a seat." And, like when she said that to me, I was a little flabbergasted, a little surprised, and also kind of confused because I'm like, what exactly are we going to be talking about? Did someone say something to her? Did someone do something to her? So we took a seat, and curious about what we're going to talk about. Elle says to me, "Dr. Washington, Hispanic Heritage Month, it came and it went, and I didn't learn about myself like I had hoped. I'm disappointed because I don't see the reflection of myself like I once did inside of school." And for any teacher, that breaks your heart, crushes your soul and your spirit. So I proceeded to ask, "How can I help?" And she said, "No worries. For writing today, I'm going to grab a paper and pen, and I'm going to write a letter." And that's exactly what she did. For writing later on that day, she grabbed the paper and pen and wrote a persuasive letter to the superintendent and school board members of my district, asking for them to reconsider how Hispanic Heritage Month is taught in their school. This is an example I would like to call igniting the fire of joyful trouble. Elle could have kept her silence and not said a word, yet she made a joyful noise. She could have just stayed invisible and not be seen again, but yet she wanted to be visible, not just for herself, but for other children that also wanted to have an experience of learning about many cultures and many groups of people during Hispanic Heritage Month. And the research actually shows that what we do is actually working for students. A recent study shows that when we use advocacy in teaching and learning in the classroom, students are more likely to use academic tools like a paper and pen to write, to construct ideas of what they see as unfair or unjust in school, and propose solutions towards fairness. But if I had to be real for a moment with everyone, I also wanted to tell you this. Injustice is systemic. And systems are big, they're heavy, and very difficult, if not impossible, to change all by yourself. So then the question becomes, how do we go from silence caused by an institution to defined disruption, and leveraging that defined disruption towards joyful freedom? Well, I got an answer for you all. It's called Igniting the Fire Framework, or the FIRE framework. 4 steps in which I teach students and adults and organizations too, how to use your platforms in order for you to seek change in your community when you see that something's wrong and that needs to be changed. I'm gonna share with you an example of how I do this in my own line of work. F stands for fuel. Fuel comes when there's a need, a desire to see some sort of change that's needed to happen in your environment. You go through your day-to-day work and all the things that's happening within your day-to-day work, you recognize, hey, something needs to be changed. Something's not done correctly. So when I invited a financial investor to come to my classroom to teach financial literacy to my 4th grade students, they were blown away, wowed by the experience of learning about checking accounts and savings accounts, using their money that they're saving in their piggy bank to invest in the stock market, and beginning their own business. Yet in that same excitement, I also recognized that there were at least 80 kids in my own school building that was in the same grade that were never going to experience any conversation about financial literacy. And that there were thousands of kids within the state that I live in that also wouldn't have access to financial literacy. Something needed to be changed. I is for inspire. Once we see that change is imminent, we have to start doing work to be inspired to see the change happen. It wasn't enough for me to do this by myself. I needed other teachers, business leaders, and advocates who enjoy financial literacy to also be part of the work. So we've set up a coalition where we met with state legislators, senators, and House of Representatives to talk about proposing a legislation, a law that will allow for all kids to be able to have financial literacy in high school so that they can learn about how money works and not perpetually fall into a cycle of debt, but to use money wisely so it could be used as a creation, a vessel towards their purpose. R is for reach. Your reach is revolutionary. As you're inspired to work with other people, the reach and the outcomes that you have can be monumental and beneficial. So when we went down to the State House, we gave testimony about why legislation for financial literacy was important for all children and adults too, to learn about wealth building and economic mobility in our whole community spaces. And it's because of that type of work that we're giving all children and all adults an opportunity to utilize the tools of financial literacy to improve on outcomes in our community spaces. And that leads to our E, engage. That level of engagement has now allowed the process to begin where every school in high school is going to allow for financial literacy, personal finance, and financial management to occur in their school spaces. This means that we have to also continue to work with teachers and school leaders about how to implement the course into the school curriculum. So we have to provide training, have conversations about how the instruction is going to be done, what kind of curriculum we're going to use, and the impact of the curriculum that's going to be impactful for students when they go out into the world to be college, career, and civically engaged as informed citizens. So that's some of the work I've done when it comes to the FIRE framework. But Elle also did work with the FIRE framework in her own way. She too was fueled, but for a different reason. Fueled that she didn't see representation in the Hispanic heritage curriculum. So she was inspired to write a persuasive letter that will allow for all children to be able to have access to all types of conversations about Central and South American Hispanic people in our classrooms. And she extended her reach, getting her paper signed by many students in the classroom, and then handed it over to me to present in front of the superintendent and school board members to consider for the next school year. And as I received the paper and then later go to the school board to have that conversation, we was to move with the engagement of the conversation about how Hispanic Heritage Month was going to be chosen differently for the next school year. Now, the district has decided that they're going to have now a more inclusive, more diverse version of Hispanic Heritage Month. Where in addition to celebrating Mexican heritage, students will also be learning about heritage from Central, South America, and European people as well. Celebrating the cultures and heritage of many people across the land who make contributions to the United States. And it all started with one student seeing that a change was imminent and needed in their own experience. So as I get ready to close here tonight, I want to leave you all with a question for you to start pondering as you think about the FIRE framework yourself. What kind of fire are you planning to ignite in your own work? For Elle, it was all about Hispanic heritage. For me, it was about financial literacy education. As for you, it's time for you to let that fire begin to burn from within, to seek a joyful healing, where we go from a silence to defined disruption that leads to radical liberation. Thank you.
And there it is, 6 speakers for TEDx Oneonta 2025. We want to bring them out to say thanks one more time, but before we do, we have a few more thanks to go out to the hall for those that helped make this happen, and 2 in particular. One, in the program, there's the planning committee acknowledged, but there's one name that was unfortunately mistakenly left out, and that's Monica Calzolari, who is very helpful, and many thanks to her for her work on the committee. And number 2 is for the video production team. One of the committee members, AJ Hecox, is a teacher at the Oneonta High School, and for the last, I think, 3 years or 4 years, we have had the high school production class come and participate in this program, and they do all the videos. So this year, I think we had 11 students, some yesterday helping set up, some today making the videos happen, and then after today, they'll be the ones making the videos that go online to represent our program to everyone else that gets to see it after this. So our thanks to our students and to Monica for being a part of this committee. And before we release you to go out there and have all the desserts, we want to acknowledge one more time our speakers. So please join me in saying thank you to our speakers as they come back onto the stage one more time, starting with our first speaker, Erica Coleman, and then Karen Commodore, Anna Thomas. This may be out of order. Judy Wright, Lorena Seidel, and Deshaun Washington. Thank you all for being here. Be sure to have your questions and comments, anything you want to talk about, they'll be out there saying hi and taking pictures and answering questions. Please join us out in the atrium and here in a few minutes. Thank you all for being here.